these things happen. David Milgaard, Guy Paul Moran.
There's innocent people who are going to die in prison.
Some people have longer sentences than I do.
The horror is once you get out, trying to get back what you'd lost.
It cost me my whole life.
Glenn wore this around the prison every day for 17 years.
I've always had hope that I would prove my innocence. I knew that this day would come. I just didn't know when.
Today is Wrongful Conviction Day. It's a day where people come together to acknowledge the struggle of those who have dealt with injustice.
My name is Rob Baltovich, and I was actually charged in November 1990 with the murder of my then girlfriend, who had gone missing 5 months previous.
In June 1990, Elizabeth Bain went missing after leaving home to check her tennis schedule at the University of Toronto Scarborough campus. Her car was eventually found, and forensic evidence showed her blood was on the back seat. To date, Elizabeth's body has never been found.
About a year and a half after that, in 1992, I was wrongly convicted of her murder. And I was in prison from the time of my conviction for exactly 8 years. 4 years later, I won my appeal. I was granted a new trial. And then in April of 2008, the Crown elected to call no evidence, and the jury was instructed to acquit me. So basically, from the time I was first arrested and charged until the time I was acquitted, it was a total of 18 years.
Rob says Wrongful Conviction Day, a day which began in Canada and is now recognized around the world, is important because it acknowledges that miscarriages of justice do in fact happen.
For a lot of people out there, they normally wouldn't turn their eyes or their attention to these types of things because they just don't believe that they happen. But the fact is that wrongful convictions do happen. They happen to people regardless of their gender, regardless of their socioeconomic status. And I think it's important for people to understand that even a country like Canada has people who are charged and convicted of crimes they didn't commit. The horror is once you get out, trying to get back what you'd lost.
Coming up, we speak to a lawyer that's behind one of the more recent wrongful conviction cases.
Glenn wore this around the prison every day for 17 years. He was a fighter from the start right to the very end, and he refused to give up.
Today is Wrongful Conviction Day. It's a day where people come together to acknowledge the struggle of those who have dealt with injustice.
Glenn's case came to us, and immediately it was of interest.
This is lawyer Sean McDonald, a member of Innocence Canada, a nonprofit organization and team dedicated to clearing the names of those that have been wrongfully convicted of a crime they didn't commit, an experience Glenn Assoon knows too well.
Glenn was charged as a result of a murder in Nova Scotia in 1995.
In 1995, Glenn's former girlfriend Brenda Way was found dead behind a Dartmouth, Nova Scotia apartment building.
Glenn was originally investigated and he had an alibi. Police said fine. They cleared him and they moved on until a year later.
McDonald says new officers took charge of the case, ignoring the alibi and eventually charging Glenn with murder. His conviction on that charge led to a 17-year sentence.
His case was over before it began. The case rested largely on witnesses who were disreputable, we know now, who colluded with one another. Jailhouse informants. There was evidence of psychic visions. 17 years later, when he was released on bail because the federal minister of justice had investigated and found that there was likely a miscarriage of justice.
And it wasn't until March 1st last year, after 5 years, that Glenn's name was finally cleared.
I've always had hope that I would prove my innocence. Always. I've never given up hope. And just never. I never give up hope. I knew that this day would come. I just didn't know when. It's a working man I am.
Glenn's case is still in the news today. Just 2 weeks ago at a press conference, the Premier of Nova Scotia said he instructed his Attorney General to refer this case to CERT. That's the province's police watchdog. The organization will investigate allegations the officers that were involved in Glenn's case destroyed evidence that could have released and exonerated him a lot sooner.
Wrongful Conviction Day is important because it reminds us that these things happen. And Glenn Assoon's case is only one example in a long list of cases that in Canadian history. They happen, right? And if you live your life and you're not reminded of these things, you can forget about them. As of today, we have 92 current cases we're reviewing. We have 10 which are with the Federal Department of Justice.
To hear more stories just like Glenn's, you can go to our website, citynews.ca. For City News, I'm Stella Acquisto.
The Ontario government has appointed its first Inspector General of Policing. Devon Clunas